Well, welcome back. The key to future success, the new book, Zconomy, says that understanding the next big wave of consumers, Gen Z, can unlock success for business in coming years. Joining me right now is the author of Zconomy, Jason Dorsey. Jason, thanks very much for being here. Tell us about the Zconomy and this generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Gen Z is very different than previous generations. And I think many people have an image of them that's just not accurate. So people think young adults today are spending money wildly, when actually in our latest study and in the book, 69% of Gen Z think saving for retirement should be a priority. 38% of them have opened an online retirement or savings account since the pandemic started. And interestingly, they're already spending money too. 49% of older Gen Z, 18 to 24, plan to make a major purchase in the next 2 years. What we've seen is the Great Recession really shaped them. So they're more practical with their money. At the same time, they're really big into social causes. And most interesting, they're driving tech adoption and consumer trends of older generations. So it's not like before where you could catch up to them later. We saw that didn't work with millennials. Gen Z is even worse, because what Gen Z is doing right now, every other generation is starting to adopt. So that's where the Zconomy comes in. If you win this generation, you can keep the others. But if you miss Gen Z, you're in big trouble. That's why I wanted to get the book out.
Yeah. So what is this generation? What are the ages here? When were they born then, Jason? And tell us how businesses can attract this generation.
Yeah, absolutely. So our research proved that Gen Z does not remember 9/11, and that's a really big deal. Sometimes there's an event that separates one generation from the other. I'm a millennial. 9/11 was the defining event for me and for my generation. For Gen Z, 9/11 has always been history. They learned it from their parents or in school, so they don't remember that event. They also do not remember a time before the smartphone or the iPhone, which is a big deal. So that's how they plan to connect with businesses and other generations. Most importantly, if you want to connect with Gen Z, you have to go to where they are today. And that's tough for a lot of businesses. That's TikTok, it's Snapchat, it's YouTube. It's places where many of them have not fully invested. At the same time, we found if you don't embrace social causes with this generation, it's a huge deal. Most interesting, for the last 4 years, their top social cause was climate change. But last year, it shifted massively, and it became social justice. At the same time, we see this generation really engages by video. And so if you're putting things in text or you're writing it out, they just don't read it. And it's got to be people who look like them. And what we're finding is they're the most diverse generation in U.S. history. They want to see people who look like them, not just in the ads, but in leadership roles and throughout an organization. And that is putting a lot of pressure on businesses to adapt. The key is what worked 3, 5, 7 years ago does not work with Gen Z. But what we're seeing works now is to reach them where they are with messages that sort of authentically connect with them. And I know authentically is a bit of an overused word, but here it means images that are not touched up, real stories, people that they can identify with, which, by the way, feels risky for many brands. But the bigger risk is to not do that and miss this generation.
Really interesting that they don't remember 9/11. That tells me, obviously, they know nothing about World War II. These are two very important points in our history to understand about the freedoms and the freedoms that our incredible military fights for our freedom and liberty every day. Jason, we'll keep studying this generation.
Right.
Thank you so much. Jason Dorsey joining us with the Zconomy.